All right. Hey, everyone. Fellow UPSC aspirants, welcome back. We always like to take these deep dives into some of the trickier parts of Indian history, and today is no exception.
Absolutely. And this one, well, this one's a big one.
Yeah, today's topic is something that I think we can all agree is super relevant for both the mains and the prelims exams.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
It's the Gandhi-Irwin Pact.
Yeah.
That agreement back in 1931.
Right.
And the question that just never seems to go away, did the pact cost Bhagat Singh his life? Did Gandhi, the champion of nonviolence, actually prioritize a political deal over the life of a young revolutionary? It's heavy stuff.
It really is. It's one of those historical debates that just keeps coming back because it gets to the core of so many things, ideologies clashing, political strategy, and these just really tough moral dilemmas that these leaders had to face during the fight for independence.
Yeah, exactly. And to really unpack all of that, we're going to be relying on this really insightful article from the Indian Express. It's called Gandhi, Bhagat Singh, and the Unresolved Debate Over a Death Sentence.
Great article. Really lays out all the different sides of this debate.
Okay, so first things first, we got to go back to the Lahore conspiracy case, right? I mean, this is where it all begins for Bhagat Singh. He was a key figure in the HSRA, the Hindustan Socialist Republican Association.
Right, and just a reminder for anyone who needs it, the HSRA was a revolutionary organization. They were fighting for complete independence from the British, and they weren't afraid to use some, let's say, more militant tactics to achieve their goals.
Right, they were definitely more radical.
They believed that armed struggle was necessary to overthrow the colonial regime.
So with that context, they carried out some pretty bold actions, like the assassination of the British police officer John Saunders.
Yeah, and that was a direct retaliation for the death of Lala Lajpat Rai. Remember, he was a prominent leader who died from injuries during a Lathi charge, basically a brutal attack by the British police.
And just to paint a picture for our listeners, a Lathi charge is where police use these long batons called lathis to basically beat and disperse crowds. Brutal stuff.
Absolutely brutal. And the HSRA saw Saunders as a symbol of that oppression, so they targeted him.
So this act of defiance, the thrust Bhagat Singh and his comrades Rajguru and Sukhdev right into the spotlight and into this incredibly controversial trial.
And the British government, they were not messing around. They set up this special tribunal, which was essentially a court with, well, let's just say it had very specific powers to handle this very sensitive case. A lot of people saw this as a way to guarantee a conviction rather than ensure a fair trial.
Right, it was definitely stacked against them.
And the verdict, it sent shockwaves through the nation. A death sentence for Bhagat Singh, Rajguru, and Sukhdev. Just imagine the tension at that moment. A young revolutionary staring down execution, a whole nation on edge.
And the hope for any kind of reprieve really rested on, well, a political solution.
Because the legal options, let's be real, they were extremely limited.
Right. And this is where Gandhi and the Gandhi-Irwin Pact really come into the picture.
So at this point, India was in the thick of the civil disobedience movement.
Right, that massive nonviolent resistance movement led by Gandhi.
Exactly. It was gaining huge momentum, but it also led to, tons of arrests. There were crackdowns. It was a really intense time.
And of course, Gandhi himself ended up in prison, which just, added fuel to the fire.
Oh, yeah. It just intensified the movement even more.
So Lord Irwin, he's the Viceroy of India at the time, found himself in a very, very tricky situation. He needed to find a way to de-escalate things.
And fast.
Yeah, the pressure was on. So that's what ultimately pushed Irwin to start talking to Gandhi. And those discussions, they eventually led to the Gandhi-Irwin Pact in March 1931. And that pact, it was a big deal. A lot of political prisoners got released. There were fines that got remitted. And there were even some concessions on the salt tax, which had been a major point of contention, of course.
Definitely a turning point in many ways.
It seemed like they were making real progress towards a negotiated settlement. But then, here's where things get complicated. Bhagat Singh and his comrades, they were completely left out of the pact.
It was a huge omission.
Right. While thousands of other political prisoners were being released, these three men, who were literally facing execution, they weren't even mentioned.
And that really ignited a firestorm of controversy.
Oh, yeah. There were accusations that Gandhi had basically, chosen a political win over the lives of these revolutionaries.
It's a tough pill to swallow for a lot of people, especially those who supported Bhagat Singh's, let's say, more radical approach.
It's hard not to see the contrast, right? You have this pact, this symbol of progress and compromise, but then you have these young men, these symbols of defiance, just left to their fate.
It's this kind of complexity that makes this debate so fascinating and so difficult to resolve. It's not about easy answers, it's about understanding the layers of history and the different perspectives at play.
And to really understand those different perspectives, I think we need to dive into the arguments both for and against Gandhi's actions.
Absolutely. We need to get into the nitty-gritty, look at the evidence, and really try to understand what Gandhi did, what he didn't do, and why.
All right, so let's get into it.
So, when we look at this debate, one of the things that really jumps out, especially for you UPSC aspirants, is that there are these two very distinct sides, and it's easy to get caught up in that, right? Was Gandhi a hero or a villain? Did he abandon Bhagat Singh? But the reality is, it's much more complicated than that.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why we have to go beyond those simple narratives, right? We need to examine the actual historical record. What did Gandhi do? What steps did he take, if any, to try and save Bhagat Singh?
Right, and that's where we got to remember that the Gandhi-Irwin Pact, it wasn't just like a one-time thing. It involved weeks and weeks of discussions, these really intense negotiations.
It was a process.
It was. And within those discussions, we actually do find documented instances where Gandhi brought up Bhagat Singh's case with Irwin.
Okay, so there's evidence that he at least raised the issue.
There is. One of the most important pieces of evidence comes from the diary of Mahadev Desai. He was Gandhi's personal secretary.
Right.
So Desai actually recorded a meeting where Gandhi specifically mentioned Bhagat Singh's case to Irwin.
Interesting. So how did Gandhi frame it? Was he demanding Singh's release as a condition for the pact? Was he making it this non-negotiable thing?
Well, according to Desai's diary, Gandhi actually acknowledged that, the case wasn't directly related to the negotiations for the pact.
So he knew it was kind of pushing the boundaries.
He did. He even said that it might be inappropriate to bring it up at all, but he still did it. He appealed to Irwin, suggesting that, maybe suspending Bhagat Singh's execution, it could help create a better atmosphere for the overall talks.
Oh, I see. So he was kind of playing the long game, trying to build some trust, make it easier to reach an agreement on the bigger issues.
Exactly. And, Irwin ultimately rejected Gandhi's appeal. He wouldn't budge on Bhagat Singh's sentence. But the fact that Gandhi brought it up during these really crucial talks, it suggests that he wasn't just ignoring those calls for Singh's release.
Right. It adds some nuance to the whole thing.
It does. It challenges that idea that Gandhi was just coldly sacrificing Bhagat Singh for some political victory.
So it wasn't just about the pact. It sounds like Gandhi had concerns about Bhagat Singh's case even before those negotiations began.
Yeah, definitely. Even earlier, before the pact was even on the table, Gandhi had voiced some pretty strong objections to the special tribunal that was set up to try Bhagat Singh and his comrades.
He wasn't a fan of that tribunal.
No, he wasn't. He believed it was designed to make sure they got convicted, not to ensure a fair trial.
Oh, so he was worried about the whole process from the very beginning.
He was. In fact, there's a letter that Gandhi wrote to Irwin back in May 1930 where he expresses these deep concerns. He actually compares the tribunal to, imposing a veiled form of martial law.
Wow, he didn't hold back.
No, he didn't. He saw the inherent biases in the colonial legal system, and he knew how these young revolutionaries were being treated.
So this wasn't just some last-minute effort on Gandhi's part. He was raising these concerns for a while.
Right, and let's not forget Gandhi's final plea for clemency. He wrote to the viceroy on the very day of the execution, urging him to reconsider, to grant clemency to Bhagat Singh, Rajguru, and Sukhdev.
It was a long shot, but he still tried.
He did. But it was rejected. That 11th hour appeal, it didn't change anything.
But it shows that, despite all the disagreements Gandhi had with Bhagat Singh's methods, he still recognized the value of his life, the tragedy of what was about to happen.
That's a powerful point. So now we have this question. If Gandhi did make these efforts, why didn't they work? Why couldn't he use the pact to secure Bhagat Singh's release?
Yeah, why wasn't it enough? What were the limitations there?
It's a great question. And to really get to the bottom of it, I think we need to turn to the historians.
Yeah.
They've spent years studying this period, and they can give us some crucial insights into what was going on behind the scenes.
All right, let's hear what they have to say. All right, so we've got this puzzle, this whole clash of personalities, ideologies, and we're trying to figure out why Gandhi's efforts, they seemed genuine, but they didn't work. What do the historians have to say about that?
Well, the historians have been debating this for a long time, and their perspectives are really important, especially if you're prepping for UPSC, those essay questions where you need to show a deep understanding of these events.
Right. You can't just scratch the surface.
No, you can't. You got to go deeper. And one perspective that's really interesting comes from historians like V.N. Dada. He's written a lot about Gandhi.
Yeah, he's a big name in Gandhi studies.
He is. And Datta's argument is that we have to remember the context, the limitations that both Gandhi and Irwin were working within.
Okay, so they weren't just these all-powerful figures who could, you know, dictate whatever they wanted.
No, not at all. They had their own political pressures, their own constituencies to consider. It was a complex situation.
They had to play the game.
They did. And Datta, in his book, Gandhi and Bhagat Singh, he really emphasizes that both of these leaders, they were constantly under pressure. They had limited options.
Right, they couldn't just act on a whim.
Right. So even if Gandhi, let's say, even if you really wanted to make Bhagat Singh's release a non-negotiable demand, did he actually have the power to do that? Would it have even been politically possible?
It's a good question, and it makes you think, right? It wasn't as simple as Gandhi just choosing to sacrifice Bhagat Singh.
No, it wasn't. It was much more nuanced than that.
Okay, so we've got Datta's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
What about other historians? Do they agree with that assessment?
Well, there are other historians like A.G. Noorani who, while they acknowledge the challenges Gandhi faced, they argue that he could have, maybe even should have, pushed harder.
Oh, interesting. So Noorani's saying that Gandhi, he could have played hardball even if it meant risking the whole pact.
Yeah, that's his argument. Noorani, in his book, The Trial of Bhagat Singh, Politics of Justice, he basically says that a last-minute plea for clemency, especially from someone like Gandhi who, was so opposed to Bhagat Singh's violent methods, it was never going to work.
It was a long shot, for sure.
It was. And Noorani believes that if Gandhi had truly prioritized saving Bhagat Singh's life, he would have made it a central issue from the very beginning. He would have forced the British to make a choice.
So he's saying Gandhi could have used the pact as leverage?
He could have, but he didn't. And that's what Noorani is critical of.
It's a tough question, right? How do you balance the potential benefits of a political agreement, something that could help millions of people, with the life of one individual, even if that individual represents a powerful symbol?
It's a huge dilemma, and there's no easy answer.
So I guess that's why this debate continues even today. It forces us to think about leadership, about the choices we make when we're facing these impossible situations.
Exactly. And there's no clear right or wrong answer. It's about understanding the complexities, the different perspectives.
So what can we, as UPSC aspirants, take away from all of this?
I think the key takeaway is the importance of nuance. Don't fall into the trap of simple narratives, easy answers. This isn't about picking a side. It's about understanding the historical context, analyzing the evidence, and considering all the different perspectives.
It's about thinking critically.
Exactly. And that's something that's crucial, not just for UPSC, but for life in general, right?
Yeah.
You need to be able to evaluate information, form your own opinions.
Don't just accept things at face value.
Right. And in your UPSC essays, that's what's going to make your answers stand out. Engage with the material, show the examiners that you can think for yourself.
Show them you understand the nuances.
Exactly. History isn't just about memorizing dates and names. It's about understanding the why, the how, the consequences.
And this episode, I think, really highlights that.
It does. So as you continue your UPSC journey, remember to always dig deeper, challenge those easy answers, and don't be afraid to grapple with the complexity.
And remember, this whole deep dive was inspired by that article from the Indian Express.
Yeah, Gandhi, Bhagat Singh, and the unresolved debate over a death sentence. Definitely check it out.
It's a great read. And we want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on this debate? Do you agree with Datta, with Noorani, or do you have a different perspective altogether? Let us know in the comments.
We love hearing from you guys.
And as always, hit that like button, subscribe to our channel for more deep dives, and keep those brains buzzing. We'll see you next time.